the role of a father, I mean, I think of being present. I think of someone who is there as a guide and as one that is going to lead by example and make decisions and honestly make an example of what it looks like to boldly follow the Lord with a whole life. And so when I think of the role of myself in my kids' lives, that's what man, everything comes back to like, what is the example I'm setting before them of what they're going to follow? And thankfully, I've had an amazing dad who's set me up to win. And my dad is just incredible, peace-filled, humble man. I've just learned a ton from my dad, and that's been amazing to let that drip into my family and help me lead my family.
When did you embrace fatherhood? So you became a dad around 22-ish, right? 21. Okay, so you became a dad at 21, newly married. When did you embrace fatherhood? Was it the day that you heard you're going to be a dad? Was it the day the baby was born? Was it when they started walking? Was it later? When did you personally go like, this matters deeply and I really want to embrace it?
Man, I feel like it actually goes before we had our first kid. When I was 18, me and my girlfriend at the time got engaged, and I went through probably the most transformative time in my life where I for the first time truly felt the love of the Heavenly Father. And it changed my life to go from pursuing my own dreams and ideas of what I wanted for a life and pursuing a life at 18 and 19 that was what does the Father want my life to look like? And that was more a question of who did God create me to be? And so I had these wrestles for the first 2 years of our marriage of these questions of what it looks like to be a dad, what it looks like to be a husband. And we had a little bit different of a journey than most. And we went to Bible school to be tribal missionaries in Mozambique, Africa. And so we were on this trajectory to be on the mission field. And so in that, the Lord took me through a journey of just complete trust and reliance upon Him. So fast forward to having our first kid, Akea May Stemo, and we are living with my wife's dad, just out of Bible school, raising support to be missionaries, and a pretty weak spot to be having a kid, bringing someone into this world. And we look back, and it was like the best time of our lives. It was just like complete dependency on where God had us, and just faith in where we were going. And just look back now, and I'm like, we were crazy. Who would let us bring a baby into the world? And now I'm like, man, that was just such a sweet time of just, I was a musician, so I was playing to provide for our family. I'd lead music at a sandwich shop for like 2 hours a day. And then I'm working at this church, and it was just crazy, but I'd make so much money in tips. It was like crazy seeing the provision that would come. Yeah, it was just a wild journey, but
I want to go ahead, finish that thought. Okay. So many thoughts, and it's like, this is going to become kind of like a conversation more than an interview for this, I think is, okay. So if your daughter came to you in 3 years, right? And so I'm asking this because I think maybe I, as let's just say a like middle-class American or male or whatever, have certain beliefs that I think maybe need to be rethought of. So here's the question. If your daughter 3 years from now is like, yo, dad, I'm getting married. The dude I'm marrying plays guitar at the local shops, and we're going to live with you, and we're going to have a baby. Like, what's your initial response to that? And here's why the couple of cultural things I want to bring up is, my first thought is like, I need a man to support you on your own, whatever, which my belief on that, I mean, yes, I believe that, but I moved out at 18 and never went back. And I don't know why there's some sense of pride in that, but I live in Hawaii now, and I see families thriving because they're living together, more multi-generational. So I'm starting to be like, hey, I would love to be able to support my kids especially if God's calling them. I hold that a little loosely, but if God's calling them to something, or there's this plan, or they're moving, like I want to be open to other things than just this kid graduates high school, goes to college, learns to make a couple $100,000 a year, and buys his own house on his own. Okay, I gave you a couple of my thoughts. What are a couple of your thoughts?
No, so there's the side of me that just like knows me and I'm like, dang, were people thinking? They just trusted me. But then there's the side of me, and my kids bring this up often now because I have two teenagers that are nearing the age of 16 when I started dating
Yeah.
the woman I married. And they're like, Dad, we're mature enough. We're old enough. And what if we get married when we're 18? And the initial reaction is like, no, that's crazy. But on the other hand, I think what I'm learning is it's actually maybe more crazy to just go with the flow of what things should be, because the culture in the world has set things in a certain order of do this, go to college, get this degree, get this job, buy this house, live in this area. And one of the verses that are super just near to me is this Romans 8:15. And maybe this plays into one of your questions you asked on your earlier, but just like, what would people say about you if you died? And I feel like this is so key, is Romans 8:15. And Eugene Peterson wrote it this way. It says, the resurrection life you receive from God is not a timid, grave tending life. It's adventurously expectant, greeting God with a childlike, what's next, Papa? And that translation and that verse is probably one that hits me again and again. Is like, am I gonna walk with God adventurously expectant, trusting Him with my family, with my life, with all that I have, or am I gonna walk in fear of what could happen, or the lie that I'm not gonna have enough, or just, yeah, we pray for our kids, spouses often. And it's like, on the other side of your question is this reality of like, okay, if my daughter did come with a guy and was like, hey, we're going to get married and we're going to have a kid in 2 years. And yeah, I mean, I'm chuckling because this is actually becoming a realer conversation for me, as my daughter is interested in guys, and we haven't ventured into the dating realm yet, but there is an interested guy in her life. And so it's just, I'm in these conversations real time. So the last thing I would say on that is, do you have a plan? Like, I want to ask the guy and know in my heart that he would do whatever it took for my baby girl. And that's the biggest deal, is like, not, I think of myself, it's not like we were just like, hey, we want to live at home and just get as much as we can from my parents or her parents. And no, it was like we were on trajectory and had a plan and a goal, and we were locked in on where we were headed.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. So that kind of that is helpful. And I think for any dad, it's okay. Yeah, bro, my plan is just to every day wake up and adventurously wait on Papa in the sky. You know what I mean? You're like, no, it's both end, right? It's I have a plan. I'm open, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to go swing the hammer every day, while also expectantly leaning in on God. And I think sometimes that can be the disconnect for young people, or especially Christians, missionary style, is like this sitting around. And what I'm hearing from you is, one, there's no sitting around. That doesn't mean we're overly striving and fearful, right? We're not fearful. We're working. But then also the heart of the man for your daughter is like, I am fighting for her. So if I got to flip burgers while I wait for a plan, or while I pursue, I'll do anything. And I think that's what I would love to see in our 18, 19, 20, 30-year-olds today, is like, not, hey, how are we going to pay rent? Well, let's flip a coin for who goes to work. It's like, no, you're the dude. You figure the responsibility in my mind's on you. So now, okay, I also have teenage daughters who are entrepreneurial leaders. Like, I can live. So I'm wrestling right now with the expectation on women to be more than a mother. And it's like, how do we put this pressure on our girls that they have to be both? You got to be a lawyer and a doctor and an entrepreneur and a mother of 5. As you're stepping into this and your daughter is already kind of entrepreneurial, where do you find your kind of conversations or thoughts around this going?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually knowing the heart of your kids before you step into any of this. And like, I've had very intentional conversations with my daughter, knowing what she wants to be and who she wants to be. And that is, I mean, her first desire, she wants to be a mom full time. And she had an amazing mom, and she looks up to her mom and says, I want to be a stay-at-home mom that loves on her kids. And I mean, she's got creativity and adventure and all of these things, but at the core, at the end of the day, like, her dream is to be a stay-at-home mom and to have a family and to love her kids. And so I think in those conversations, still being able to help them steward the creativity that's in their heart and the dreams in their hearts to do even the other things like open a shop. But I think it comes back to like, who are you created to be, and like, what is placed in your heart, and knowing that as a dad and being able to then steward that and lead her in that. And even with who I was going to marry one day and what they value, and do those values align with the values that she knows are in her heart.
So let me ask you this, and just as dads try to navigate this, because I do think our kids, okay, first off, at the core, you said know your kid's heart. And I think that's a father's opportunity and responsibilities to really know your kid and help them see their talents and giftings, right? Okay, so I just want to get your opinion on, okay, kid, you were born, you are loved by me, you are loved by God, you have a white blank sheet of paper. Go do whatever you want in this life. Or the flip side, God has a plan for you that is like, oh, shoot, I hope I don't miss it. Is it to live in Wichita, Kansas and have a vintage shop my whole life? Or it's like I'm constantly doing the right thing. So where do you find in that kind of tension between the two? Because I think kids can get stuck growing up being told God has a plan for you. Mm-hmm. What's your thought on that as you communicate that?
No, I love this question, because I feel like in some ways, the Western church has stunted our youth with this very question, because both extremes are really hard, where you're just like, hey, just go be awesome. Here's a blank slate and do whatever you feel like your heart. And to me, that's not in the Bible. Like, fathers and leaders were meant to shape and point arrows where they were supposed to go to be effective. And so then on the other hand, you have this, real conversation of like, there is things that God placed only in you, that he made each person very unique, very different. Like, the most intrinsic design ever is in humanity. And to think that you would maybe settle for something less, that you don't have that in you to create or to lead or be a part, and that could be, as I'm not saying like company or whatever, it could be a family, like that you are just lead a family in such a special way. And I think we've over spiritualized that conversation of God's will or God's plan, to the point where young people don't end up doing anything for God because they're waiting around for the word or for the direction or the finances. And the reality is, most of the time, a lot of these young people, and I know my kids, have heard from God, and words or through the Bible, things have stirred in their hearts and they have confirmation on something.